Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope that the migration from the other room is finished. But I need to start in this session because the time is very short, and so I think it's important to enter directly in the topic. My name is Fulvio Geri, and I am a researcher that collaborates with Dottoressa Bracco, and I am here on behalf of Dottoressa Bracco that unfortunately is busy for the many activities related to EXPO and in particular to Padiglione Italia. Let me spend a few words about this session that is very interesting and entitled Global Food Security Towards EXPO 2015. That is particularly important within the context of this bioeconomy conference, because the goal of the EXPO is very close to the objective of this bioconference. In fact, the theme is it is possible to ensure sufficient, good, healthy, and sustainable food for all humankind. And I think that is practically the life motive we will have in these 2 days during the conference. I don't want to spend too much time in this presentation, but it's important that you know the objective of EXPO in Milan, because I think it's a huge opportunity for sure for Milan, but also for Italy, but also for Europe, because focus our attention on these 3 objectives that will be developed in the period starting from next May to October. I think that is the main reason to the contents of the to discuss today. Particular attention is related to what we call vivaio. Vivaio means a place in which we start to grow. So particular attention is related to the young people, for the future generation that will be involved in the life in Europe and in all the world. And for this reason, we will try to develop within the Italian pavilion to demonstrate that the young talent can contribute a lot of our future. Just few words in order to show you where we are in the preparation of the exhibition. This is very quickly few images related to the area that is practically completely fulfilled of delegation. Palazzo Italia is in the middle, you can see. And I would like to show you something related to the architectural concept. We are working very hard in this direction because I think that the message that comes from also the architectural, it's important. Few images that are trying to rendering what we will have the opportunity to see in Milan in the next May. But what is important is also the events that are moving on, that are related to what we will discuss today. In particular, there are several topics that overlap with what we will discuss today. In particular, food safety and security, and the other that I mentioned here that we will distribute in the organization of the Expo in the period starting from now to October, and also from May and to the next October, I think will complete the organization for the discussion, real open discussion. I am very short and I like to start with the speakers. The first speaker is Dr. Van de Heede. Guy has been involved for many years in providing technical support to the implementation of the European policy. He has experience in international collaboration and capacity to building. He was the chairman for the Entrance Food, which is a European network on the safety assessment of genetically modified food crops. From the April 2012, he was appointed as advisor for bioeconomy at DG JRC headquarters, and his portfolio consists of a large variety of life science related files. I think that the contribution will be important for us and for the discussion that we will have later. Please.
Well, a very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. Well, actually, I'm here this morning to replace for my director, David Wilkinson, who is the EU Commissioner General for the EXPO 2015. So, although I am a member of the European Commission and more specifically of the DG Joint Research Center, I will speak here on behalf of David Wilkinson in his function as EU Commissioner General for the EXPO. Just to remember, EXPO 2015 is about feeding the planet energy for life. It has been just said, and I think we all agree that it will be one of the major events of next year, running from beginning of May till the end of October, with more than 20 million visitors expected to be on the site and many more millions to follow the event via various internet means and so on. With this introduction, I also would like to express the enormous interest of the Commission as a whole, also of the Parliament, the Council, and this is just a citation of President Barroso that he made in 2013, indicating that he believes that for the European Union, the Expo will be both a platform to reach out to our citizens and for a more interactive approach to policy development. Now, 2015 will also be the target year, and I do believe that some of the other speakers will come back to that, will be the target year for the Millennium Development Goals, and will also be the start of a decision on new sustainable development goals. I'm not going into the details here, but I think it's important to make the link between these events for next year and the discussions that will be held, or the theme, the central theme of the Milano Expo. So what is at stake for the years to come? What is the policy objective? The question is, how can we ensure safe, nutritious and sustainable food supply for all of mankind? And how can we provide sufficient food, energy and water for all while managing climate change and using less fossil fuel. And the next slide shows a little bit an overview of the whole cycle of the bioeconomy, which I'm sure you know all much better than I do. But I would like just to make the emphasis here on the element of the agricultural food supply, which is at the middle of the diagram, which are the raw materials from where one would like to produce food, feed, fiber, energy, chemicals, and so on and so forth. We are producing waste which is then going to be included as a new source of raw materials that again goes into the cycle. What I also would like to point out is that, of course, in order to have our sufficient supply, we need to work on genetic resources. We need to have sufficient water available. We need to have the fertilizers, pesticides, energy, and so on and so forth. And if you look at all these things going into 2050, you can imagine that many of these are going to be put under pressure. We will have, normally we expect to have 9 billion people. We will have risks of soil depletion, erosion. We are facing climate change. We are facing a whole series of environmental safety issues. So the whole discussion on the availability of biological materials is really a key element in the discussions. And that is something that the Commission is very much focusing on. And actually we have just started, and Commissioner Geoghegan-Quinn mentioned it also yesterday, we have just started also to do a very large project on availability of raw materials, supply, demand chain within Europe and the rest of the world today and for the years to come. But this is something that we need to take into consideration when we talk about the EXPO theme. And this also links to the fact that within the European Commission, the EXPO touches upon a very large variety of policy themes. I'm not going to read them all. I've listed them here. But you can imagine that we do not only talk about health and safety or about nutritious food, we also talk about food waste and food losses, about development cooperation. Food fraud and counterfeiting is something which is very high on the policy agenda because the losses there are extremely high. Environment, energy, all these things are relevant policies with respect to the EXPO. And of course, also the driver for the years to come is science, research, and innovation. Now, with respect to the EU participation, there are three major objectives. First of all, what we would like to use the EXPO event for is to foster corporate communication, and I will come back to that later. We would like to use the EXPO to develop a reference for policy making related to the EXPO theme, and the fact that we are now just at the starting point of a new commission with President-elect Juncker for the next years to come. We believe that this is an excellent period to use indeed the EXPO to put into the spotlight a number of policy themes and to work out some strategic policy documents. And we also believe that the EXPO is a very good contribution to the agenda of growth and jobs. We will also have our pavilion there. Actually, it is linked to the Italian pavilion, also to show the fact that the EU pavilion is not a standalone island within the EXPO. It is embedded into the contribution of the EU member states, and we are very well working together with other EU countries to put together the EXPO program. So we will have our pavilion, and in that pavilion we will explain how the EU and the member states have been contributing to global food security and how important cooperation is in that respect. We have a very tight, intense EU calendar. Today we have approximately, well, not approximately, but we have over 200 scientific, public and stakeholders events being planned throughout the whole period, and not just on the site within the EXPO settings, but also in various places in Milan. And actually, quite close to here, we have the biggest site of our organization, which is in ISPRA, where we have a few thousand of people working in different institutes that are certainly related to the Expo theme. So we will also organize a number of events in the ISPRA site. We join in the EC policy DGs. I've just listed the policy areas. We involve parliamentary committees, we involve member states, experts, and so on. We will have small and very large events being taken place during the Expo during these 6 months. I think it is also extremely important to stress here that we have set up a steering committee of very high level. I list here again the names of the people that are part of the steering committee. We have also a number of breakout discussions or larger discussions than just with the core people that are listed here. And for example, I'm very happy that Mela has been involved in some of our discussions. Now, this steering committee is guiding the EU into the preparation of the scientific program and the scientific discussions in relation to the Expo. The role, of course, it gives an extreme political and also scientific importance to the Expo team. What we would really like to do is to ensure that the European Union takes the opportunity which is offered by the platform of Expo 2015 to establish a key role as a player in this global debate. And we are expecting some work from the scientific committee to be done. We are expecting a few contributions, and an extremely important one, we believe, is a recommendation document with priorities for research, development, and innovation. Guidance also on the draft program of the events, because it is the steering committee that looks at the several hundreds of events that the European Union as a whole is planning, is giving its opinion, its contribution there to assure that we have the best scientific representation during the various programs and at various levels. People that can talk with the public in general, also people that are ready to go into high-level expert discussions. There are a number of research teams involved. Again, I've listed them here. I think they are rather straightforward if we talk about an argument like the Expo. But for all these teams, we have small breakout groups, and we are looking in what for those teams we can contribute, we can put together in line of the Expo event. This is in a very nutshell what we would like to do with the European Union in terms of the Expo. As I've said, at the highest level, or from the highest level, we attach a very, very great importance to the event, not just for the Commission, but also for the Parliament and the Member States. We have been mobilizing all efforts across the various Directorates General to prepare for this event. And I hope that you will all take some time next year and come and visit not only the Expo, but also to have a look at what we are doing there as European Union. Thank you very much.
So in order to manage the discussion, I asked the speaker to remain at the table, and we will have an open discussion at the end of all the discussion will be at the end, let me say, because it's better in order to don't overlap and lose time. So I invite to the podium the second speaker, that is Jörg Spildener. Jörg is a researcher, and from the beginning of his activity was involved in activities related to the nutrition and global health. Now he's part of the Nestlé Research Center in Lausanne, and in particular he's the head of a public health nutrition department. I think that the speech from Jörg will show us the vision of the industry in this area. Please, Jörg.
Well, thank you very much. I will not show you a nice pavilion Nestle is going to present at the Expo in Milano. Nestle will most probably be present within the pavilion of Switzerland that we are negotiating at the moment. But let me more focus on the content rather than on a framework, and showing you maybe a question I would have to the audience, to the organizers of the Expo, but also to the whole field of bioeconomy. I mean, we just heard about enough food is needed for 9.1 billion people in 2050. When I hear enough food, and this is the basic question, is meaning that most of it's calculated on yields or on calories, but not many people actually consider the nutritional quality of what is going to be produced. Although it is in all the statements, concrete action, concrete organizations are not working yet together in order to show the link between environment, sustainability, and nutrition quality in that. And I think that's of utmost importance, and I will give you 2 examples on that. And we believe that this is important. So bioeconomy, I tried to put it into a framework on bioeconomy. I could also look at it as a value chain, is when you look at the different bulbs on the slide, they show where the environment is mainly hit with waste, energy, carbon dioxide, water, and waste in agriculture and production of raw materials. The food industry such as Nestle, is mainly working on the middle field, where actually not so much energy, CO2, water, and waste is being produced. And this is in our control, and we control pretty well. And I could now tell you what Nestle does, fantastic things in this control. I'm not going to do it because I think we have to focus more on the other issues: environment, energy, CO2, water, and waste in the agriculture and raw materials, and also at the consumer end. In that slide, you see also the consumer on the other side. So in the consumer, there are 2 things. It just came out of a very good publication, most probably one of the few publications in food waste in the UK. And you're most probably aware of that about 40% of food being bought by the consumer is being wasted. So here is another very, very important waste of food happening, and with a consequent, subsequent environmental impact. And also health via nutrition, and this is also a responsibility of the food industry, is we want to have a consumer being nourished the best possible. So again, that's also a big bubble there, health via nutrition, and you see these 2 fields have somehow to be linked. I'll give you an example on that, what we did with dairy farming in Moga in the Punjab area in India, and I'm representing a global company that makes most of its money outside of Europe. And I talked to a European contingency, but it was mentioned just before that actions have to be followed, and Europe should work on a global scale. As a company being based in Switzerland, being fundamentally based in Europe, with most of its research still being done in Europe, we have a global responsibility. In the dairy farm in Moga and Punjab, the Punjab is a water-deprived area, and we collect 1.25 million liters of milk every day from about 100,000 farmers in that area. Just to give you also a little bit the scale of operations. I think it's our 2nd biggest milk factory globally. And in that area, we saw that with the farmers bringing the milk usually have 2 cows and smallhold farmers. And the rest of the farming land, they have rice plantations and other cereal plantations for their own use. As it is a water-deprived area, rice is consuming much more water than dairy farming, about double as much water, 2.5 times water. So we work together with international academia, with organizations, to address that issue in order to raise the water levels, because this is not sustainable if the water goes down in that area. Success is that over the last years, the water levels started to rise. The farmer has doubled his dairy farming. It's good for us because we get more milk into the factory. The farmer gets a higher revenue because he can sell the milk more expensive than the rice, so he can buy the rice on the market where the rice comes from somewhere else, or other wheat products. And on top of that, the milk quality was improved as well. So here we see that sustainability links to also nutritional quality, because you all know that rice is quite an empty carbohydrate, whereas milk as a raw material has much higher nutritional value. So we linked sustainability, profit for the enterprise, profit for the farmer, and health together. And this is in our line of creating shared value. Let me now just give you another example, and then I will end on health via nutrition, how we address that. It is not about food, it's about nutrition. When you see these children, this is a classical school feeding picture of Indian children. And when you look at the plates, what you see is rice, and you see a sauce that is mainly composed of saturated fatty acids, so the nutritional value of a school meal is very low. If you would replace that school meal with 2 glasses of fortified milks on micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, you could reduce anemia, a disease that is caused by a lack of iron in most of the development countries. You could reduce anemia by 50%, that is all published data, and you could enhance cognitive development severely, data published by the World Bank. So replacing that would drive a considerable gain for the children, but also considerable gain for the society as such, because a higher cognitive development leads to higher productivity and higher GDP. We did this example, and we published all the data on the Philippines. So in the Philippines, we went out in the communities, did a household survey of about 2,400 households, and saw that the people do not know about the link of iron deficiency and cognitive development. There was no awareness of that. And we did these studies together with the Philippine Food National Research Institute. And I must admit, and this is the luxury position Nestle is in the country, we have an enormous high market share with a product that is 85 years on the market. We changed the product, we increased the iron content in order to address that problem. We have a high market penetration and an enormous trust by the consumers and an enormous trust by the government as a partner in nutrition. So we could launch a campaign together with the government on addressing that through multimedia, a large multimedia campaign in the Philippines of making that link between iron deficiency and cognitive development. And particularly the lower socioeconomic classes, the mothers, changed so we monitored that from Q1 2013 from 19% to 65% awareness of iron and the link to cognitive development. And all the mothers answered in the survey that I want my child to succeed in school. So a very clear success showing that public-private partnership can work in addressing micronutrient deficiency through marketed fortification, so brands that are on the market and have to be bought by the consumer. In the second stage, we would like to develop together with the Philippines governmental interventions, because, as I said, we are a profit-making company and we need to live with that, so we also want to sell that product. And as you can see, at the same time, we had a strong growth of sales and we had the market share of beer brand back to its highest ever. And sometimes it's tough to understand for this community, or where I speak in universities, that it's tough to understand that a company can make profit, but can make a profit by creating also value for society. And I think these 2 examples illustrate that very well. When we look into the future, what we would like to look at, and I'm talking here also from the R&D community, or in particular for the R&D community, is to look into consumer waste. So we have high interest in looking at consumer waste. And as I said, for the EXPO, for example, in linking environment, the agricultural economists on the one hand, the nutritionists on the other hand. I have about 60 nutritionists in my team. We have hundreds of agricultural economists. So how do we bring these people together and talk to each other and try to develop methodologies or address that issue? I think I want to conclude with that just for Europe, and I have all our commitments here, what we do in Nestle on sugar, salt, fat reduction, greenhouse gas emissions, water. We have everything disclosed on our website. We have clear percentages of reductions we want to achieve, and you can read that on the website. But just being in Europe, and I heard this morning and yesterday about unemployment and youth employment, Nestle has launched an initiative under the leadership of Laurent Fresh, our European zone head. We will up to 2016 employ 20,000 people in Europe under the age of 30, not under the age of 13. So that was a mistake. So don't quote me on that, under the age of 30. particularly looking at the countries that are hit severely by youth unemployment. And I think it's a great initiative that Nestle took on recently. And I think that's it from my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now we move to have a view from another perspective. This perspective will come from Francesco Torrigiani. Francesco is a tropical agronomy, and he works practically from the beginning in international cooperation programs, and now is a member of the board of supervisor of
I was
of Oxfam Italia
in for 5 years.
and the topic that we'll discuss today with you is the global food security from an international NGO.
Thank you. Buongiorno. Good morning. Yes, I represent here Oxfam. This is a network of 17 national NGOs. This is part of a large worldwide confederation. So I'm here as an Italian branch. I'll try to give some important facts about global food security and position of the civil society that Oxfam is part of, looking at EXPO and looking also at the post-2015 agenda for development. So, and trying also to see what we have tried, what we are doing also with the collaboration of private companies to assure global food security or to contribute to it. The main countries to food security at global level, first one is unfair food system. Of course, we know that 1 billion people have not enough food at the world level. Most of them are small-scale producers or are farm laborers. So this is an important. They produce food, but they don't have enough food for them. And of course, another killing fact: 40% of food worldwide is wasted. So also it is another thing that would make us think. Another important factors, 208 and 211, 12, we had the peak of the price for many food, important, for instance, corn or rice, due to complex effect, financial, climate, and commercial, but we can resume all price increase, climate events, but also biofuel policies. For instance, in European Union or in the US. And this caused, for instance, for instance, in 10 years, we lost, only in Africa, we lost surface of as Kenya in order to produce food or biofuel toward Europe in 10 years. Many, not all, but many of these land acquisitions have been realized without the previous free and aware consent of local communities. This is called land grabbing. It's a very important factor of food insecurity, as you can easily understand. So that's why we speak about distorted use of natural resources, land and water. So land grabbing is an important issue, and of course, will be an issue that's also in EXPO agenda is included. And for instance, just to jump into EU policy, you know the two directive of the European Union on emission of food quality and on renewable energy implies that 10% of fuel for transportation should come from biofuel. You know, there is a debate within the European Commission, within the Parliament, within the European Council to change this directive, because we have many evidence that this cause important effect on land grabbing. Let's say that, for instance, if you would like to apply this 10% from biofuel, would imply that 29% of arable lands at worldwide level should be used for biofuel. Of course, I'm speaking about biofuel from food crop. It's important to underline this. And also, there are some concerns, and investigation says that, for instance, if we apply this as the directive has been approved at the present, so far, if 10% of biofuel would come from food crop, we would increase the greenhouse gas emission as we would put 29 million of vehicles. This is due to the indirect land change effects. For instance, if we put an hectare of soya bean, for instance, for biofuel to be consumed in Europe, we need the same surface to be designated to food production for local community in order to maintain the same supply. So it is an indirect effect of the land use change. But at the present, the actual directive does not contabilize this effect. And also the Joint Research Center recognizes that it is an important issue that should be considered when contabilizing emission of gas. And speaking about hectares, this would be required for 4 to 8 million of hectares of land, new land, converted to biofuel production. So, from civil society organizations, some recommendation on these two directives. That's repeated. There is a complicated debate within the European Commission, the Council, and the Parliament, but we would recommend to contabilize indirect land use change and to put a cap of 5% of the 10% to biofuels from food crops. So that should be an important element. Also to make ex-ante assessment for advanced or no-food biofuels, taking into consideration also social sustainability criteria in the long term. Of course, we would recommend also more efficiency on transportation systems. They are very obvious. This recommendation, of course, you can say banal, but it's not so easy to be applied anyway. Jumping into what we are doing, reminding that 10% of global world economy comes from 10 food companies. Oxfam launched a campaign, it's called Grow, in order to change some patterns in the world food supply chain. And we recommend, for instance, the importance of investing at the local level in the so-called less developing countries on family farming and small-scale farming. International Monetary Fund dedicated a lot of money to big-scale farming in developing countries. Most of them are for biofuels. It is important to also to dedicate money to small-scale farming. We have evidence that small-scale farming is effective. To invest more and to give importance to the agroecology in a sustainable way. So this would be also important for greenhouse emission. For instance, the role of women. Oxfam is known for gender work. We know that if women who work on small-scale farming would have the same right that men, they could feed 150 million people. And so within this campaign, we made a classification of 10, the most important 10 food companies, giving a range, a vote to them, and well, Nestlé got a good vote, say 6.5.10. Well, we asked these companies, not only we asked the company, but we asked the customers to ask the companies to apply some policies in order to reduce land grabbing, reduce greenhouse gas emission. 29% comes from agriculture. Gender equity in supply chain, right for farm labor. It reminds us most of the people who don't have enough food are farm labor. And the same, and also to assure small farmers food security and transparency in the supply chain. Some company, for instance, Nestlé committed to improve gender equity in supply chain. Kellogg's committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Of course, more work is necessary for assessing and monitoring these commitments in the next coming months and years, and this will be our work. It's important to say this relation with private company is not a confrontational one, it's a constructive one, and important to know this. Well, trying to jump into EXPO and post 215 agenda. Of course, there is not yet a consolidated position of all the civil society organization, but some talking points that we could say today regards the revision of the Millennium Development Goals. Eradicate extreme inequity. We know that 85 of the richest people in the world own half of the money, let's say, the richness of the world. And so, eradicate extreme poverty, gender equity. There are not so many changes respect to the Millennium Development Goal, universal health coverage, resilience in a warming world, limited global warming to 1.5 degrees. Of course, this is until 230. Right to food for all. So this is important. I would like to highlight this one. Universal access to water and sanitation. Let's say that some projection says that 2 of 3 people in the world will not have access to water in 225. Reduce global disaster risks. Yesterday, Carlo Pettini said an important element that it is important to maintain small-scale producers on their territory because they can increase their resilience and is much more costly to work after the disaster happens than preventing it, for instance, land. And so this would be some important element, but the most important of these points for the post-215 agenda is to have money to finance all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. We are just a little bit late, and for this reason, I move quickly to the next speaker. The next is Mela Frewen. Mela has worked in agri-food in the sector in Europe for 25 years. She comes from Ireland, but she's married Italian, and so for her it's more or less coming at home. Now she is Director General of Food and Drink Europe, representing Europe's largest manufacturing industries since July 2007. Mela?
Grazie Fulvio, buongiorno a tutti, hello, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. The production of renewable biological resources and their conversion into food, feed, bio-based products and bioenergy, or the bioeconomy, is one of the oldest sectors known to humanity. In fact, more than 9,000 years ago, beer was already being produced in Mesopotamia. Today, however, life sciences and biotech are transforming the bioeconomy into one of the newest sectors in the food industry. We all know the challenges, so I won't go into these in detail. They're huge, and the food industry is conscious of the role that it has to play in providing the solutions. But the challenges that we face are also opportunities for the food industry. They encourage investment in research and innovation. They add value to food products and food manufacturing processes. Today, 2 out of every 3 companies in the agri-food industry are permanently involved in some sort of innovation. And every 5 years, food products representing half a supermarket are renewed. So that means that 50% of the products you see in supermarket shelves today will no longer be there in 5 years' time, the food products. Innovations aim, of course, at providing tailor-made solutions for all of today's consumers, whether they're old or young, whether they're active or less active, those with special dietary needs, etc. In fact, the mission of the food industry has as key meeting the needs of consumers and society. Moreover, in line with sustainable development, 2 out of every 3 innovations in the food sector have a positive effect on the environment. Research and innovation form the cornerstone of sustainable growth for the industry, and the bioeconomy is therefore an integral part of the business. The European Commission's report, State of the Innovation Union, Taking Stock, 2010-2014, and its communication, Research and Innovation as Sources of Renewed Growth, it was published 2 months ago, explicitly target the creation of knowledge and innovation communities, or KICs. Also, the establishment of close links with the private sector and stronger roles in entrepreneurship. This is a way to bring innovative products to the market. And this is all important for us in the food industry. We need a food kick in order to generate innovative food products and processes and then to bring them to market. Because there's not much point in doing the research, in investing in innovative products if they cannot be brought to the market at the end of the day. Here, I think I should underline consumer trust. It's an all-important element. If the consumers mistrust the science, or the industry, or the policymakers, or other stakeholders, for whatever their reason, all the hard work and investment in the new products will have come to no avail. In its report, the Commission also pledges to help match innovative firms with investors and to pay special attention to SMEs, improving access to finance and cutting red tape. It also commits to screening the legislation to improve the innovation framework and to provide incentives to foster innovation. Getting good ideas to market is essential, and this is why the food industry, together with academia, launched the European technology platform Food for Life, already as far back as 2005. The recent research and innovation agenda, Food for Life, launched in 2012, is really highly focused on innovation. And its motto is adding life to years. Obviously, we've already added years to life. Now what we want to do with those years is to make them more healthy, more active, and more fun for older people. What is an older person? I've heard anyone over 50, but that's... So the aim of our ETP Food for Life platform is to deliver innovative, improved and sustainable food products that will have a positive effect on public health and on the quality of life. The range of topics we deal with in this platform vary from food and the decline of cognitive functions in the aging human brain, from there to metabolic energy efficiency, from chemical and microbiological hazards to reduction of food losses and waste, from alternative protein sources to sustainable water, etc., etc. There's a long list of objectives. A special platform is dedicated to innovation carried out by SMEs. Once again, SMEs, which form the backbone of the industry, are really, really important. Another objective is to prepare, train and hire young food engineers and scientists into the food industry. You've heard already some of the actions of Nestlé here, but the whole food industry is involved in creating jobs for young people today in Europe. but not only in Europe, but also throughout the rest of the world. We are really determined as an industry to deliver here, and we have joined forces with EFAT. EFAT, who's talking, I think, at the moment in another room, is the European Federation of Unions for Food, Agriculture and Tourism. These are our social partners. Hopefully, working together will increase our chances of success. And in fact, the last 2 years of work together have shown that when employers partner with employees, we really can achieve something special. Last year, thanks to some funding from the European Commission, we carried out a study to identify the gaps, the skill gaps in the industry. We've worked on profiling, on job descriptions, and how to provide the industry with bright young people who are enthusiastic to work in the sector. This year, we also partner with EFAT, and we have launched our apprenticeship pledge. Our members are committing to create tens of thousands of apprenticeship and traineeship positions in the food and drink manufacturing industry, with a particular focus, once again, on SMEs. Things are moving in the right direction, but they're moving rather slowly. And there are some obstacles, of course, that remain. I think myself that the toughest obstacle is consumer acceptance of new. Consumer acceptance of new in the food industry is a very, very tough obstacle. We have images of grandmothers making apple tarts and romantic scenes of olive pickers and farm maids milking cows, churning and make the cream to make the butter. These scenes, of course, are true. They're there. They still exist today. But the food industry is so much more than that. We should be showing how tradition can be respected, how tradition can even be enhanced through new technologies and through new processes, instead of always associating food with these romantic images. Food has never been safer. Food has never been better. Precaution must be weighed against benefits and not only against the risks. So other bottlenecks to innovation come from lack of entrepreneurial spirit, lack of private investment. In Europe, in fact, we invest substantially less in food innovation than our main global partners. We have a less developed venture capital sector. We must encourage more innovation, especially involving SMEs, through more tax incentives. We need to encourage patenting. We must make the regulatory environment more conducive to risk-taking and the approval processes less complex and less lengthy. Why should anyone invest if the outcome is so unpredictable? The examples we have seen during these 2 days of the bioeconomy at work, they're very encouraging. And members of my organization, including the biggest food industries, but also the smallest in the world, we will continue to focus on innovative value-added products such as food supplements, additives obtained from biorefinery, from biomass, and from food industry wastage. Processes are being developed to extract protein products from plant residues or from byproducts of the bioethanol starch industries. Residues from agri-food industry, such as beet or potato pulp, currently used for animal feed, are also being examined for further valorization in new applications and new markets. There's a huge amount of potential uses. A substantial amount of research and innovation is being done in functional ingredients that are beneficial for health. Probiotics is an example. Reformulation of salt, of trans fats, of sugars is also an area where much has been done and where work continues. However, without return on investment, there is no incentive for companies to continue spending time on this. We need to recognize the value of science, including emerging science, by creating a framework that fosters innovation rather than stifles it through simple procedures, through certainty. If necessity is the mother of invention, now is the time to be inventive, because there is a real necessity to step up to the immense challenges we face in the world today. Einstein once said, if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got, which I particularly like. But I thought I'd leave you with a quote from a fellow Irishman, George Bernard Shaw, who said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. All progress, therefore, depends on the unreasonable man. So let's be unreasonable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mela, for your talk. Now we move to the last speaker, that is Francesco Loreto. that is director of within the National Research Council in Italy, and now is director of the Department of Biology, Agriculture, and Food Science. At the beginning of my introduction, I mentioned several activities that are part of the work that EXPO is carrying out in terms of scientific work. There is a collaboration between Padiglione Italia and CNR, and Francesco will describe us what happened in this area. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to give this presentation here. I don't need to introduce myself anymore. This is, I'll give you the first 2 or 3 slides. I really to jump because it's time is really short, but let's see what I can do. You should be able to catch just the main message on each slide. So this is the scientific network of the National Research Council of Italy. We are 8,000 researchers, about 600 researchers working in the biology, agriculture, and food science department. We are spread all over Italy, as you can see here. This is the scientific network of my department, 9 institutes. Again, we cover about all Italy. And there are institutes which are particularly interested in all areas, in plant science and animal science related to agriculture and biology. The gray one are 2 new institutes that have been just formed, the Institute for Sustainable Plant Protection, the Institute of Bioscience and Bioresources, just to highlight the importance that we give to sustainability in our network. The mission of the department, the grand mission of the department, is something that you heard all over the conference, I'm sure, is to face with the scarcity of energy, the scarcity of water, and the scarcity of food that are very important issues in agriculture today and for the entire life of the humans in the world. So 30 to 50% of more water, more energy, and more food is needed, and therefore the grand mission here is doubling the agri-food production, halving the resource use. This is the core of the sustainable intensification of agriculture. To tackle these problems, we have 3 big projects in the department, and one is called genomics, but it's mostly in biology. The second is food science, and the third one is sustainable agriculture, plus strategic projects, plus 41 European Commission funded projects that have been awarded to CNR. In 7 of them, we are the coordinators. And we also end up having very applied research. 47 patents at CNR have been formed in my department. 27 have been already transferred to enterprise. This is a very good share, more than 50% as a practical application. And among them, there are new varieties, new biotechnological products, and so on. Now, the second part of my talk is about the Horizon 2020 and the societal challenges. As you have seen, there are many issues that we follow up and we've covered and actually fall into the second pillar of the societal challenge, the priority 3, food security, sustainable agriculture, and forestry. I borrowed these slides from Fabio Fava, who was giving one of his very interesting presentation in Florence recently for the region of Tuscany. And again, these objectives of the societal challenge too are very similar to the objective that you've seen already that are our objective of CNR in our department. And this is the strategy, actually, of the bioeconomy at the European Commission, making the best from our biological resources and accelerating the transition to a sustainable bioeconomy. If you look in in a deeper way to the different sector, agriculture and forestry, agri-food, for safe and healthy diet, aquatic living resource, and bio-based industry and economy. Again, these are the three projects of CNR, of the Department of Bioscience at CNR, that cover exactly the same issue. So this is particularly important for us in Italy. 7% is still the internal revenue that comes from agriculture. The employment is very, very large in agriculture, and the annual turnover of money is particularly important in the three sectors that are highlighted here: agriculture, terrestrial livestock, and aquaculture. We export about 26% of our food and drink that we produce. This is third in Europe, and is particularly important issue for us. And we are also very, very strong in sectors that are not directly food sectors, but it's a non-food sector, such as, for instance, in forestry. Look simply at the annual turnover that come from wood and wood products, 28 billion euros. And of course, in everything comes from the non-food sector. So we are talking about biorefineries. I'm sure you heard a lot about biorefineries all over the conference. This is a very big issue for us. I summarize here what can be done actually with the biorefineries. And the biorefineries market is growing and is going to be very important by 2020. But it's very important for us in Italy. Look how many biorefineries there are in Italy, pilot plants and demo plants and industrial sites and so on and so on. We are very much involved in all of these issues. There is a very strong private investment in biorefineries, so very, very good economical support to that. So, in this part of my talk, I focus more on recommendations that come from CNR together with EXPO, the European Plant Science Organization. I borrowed these slides from EXPO, but this is exactly, since we contribute to EXPO, we are one of the independent academic organizations that contribute the most to EXPO. I am really sharing with them all of these issues. So the first point is improve resource use efficiency and resource stewardships. The second is increase the yield and yield stability, which means increase resilience toward dynamic and adverse environments. And I'm just repeating probably what you heard many times during this conference. Enriching and enriched enhanced plant for healthy human nutrition and animal feed. And resilient plants for improved plant health. This specifically has to do with reducing in a sustainable way the adverse effect of pests and pathogens, and improve composition and performance of plants for non-food products. So take these 5 messages all together, and these are the recommendations that we are trying to bring into EXPO as a CNR. The reason why we are doing that has been highlighted already by the chairman. We have two contracts with EXPO, and we are fulfilling the contract. The first contract is with the Italian pavilion, and we are the scientific advisor of the Italian pavilion. So as a CNR, we are putting together with them the strategic program in research for the Italian pavilion. And we also have a side agreement with the region of Lombardy to do exactly the same for the region of Lombardy. So the recommendation that we gave to them have been followed up, and now we have 5 pillars in this program that we are carrying out. The first is the recommendation chart on future challenge of food safety. This is safety for food project. The second pillar are the 24 events for the Italian pavilion. Then there are the 3 events for the Lombardy region, the international cooperation, and the communication strategy. For the food safety, EFSA and the Food and Drug Administration, of course, have done a lot, but we have new challenges, new menaces due to the increased commerce of food all over the world, as is shown here. And so actually what we are doing is a recommendation chart to understand and cope with the future risks on food safety. These are 3 phases. During the phase 1, which has ended already, we consulted all the experts in the institutes of CNR and also the other experts around Italy and abroad. In the second phase, We open to the scientific community consulting and social phase, and in the third phase, we will render, of course, we will deliver to the participating countries in EXPO the results of our consultation and possibly release the future best practices on food safety. The 24 events is the core, actually, of our participation to EXPO. 24 are the weeks of EXPO. So 24 events means one event per week into the Italian pavilion. And we have master planned our contribution in three big areas: food and man, food and production factors, and food and technologies. And we explode from these three big areas six areas. You see, from food and man, education to food science and environmental sustainability, production factors and new farming models and resources and their sustainable use. These are the two coming from the food and production factors, and two more: food security, safety and quality, international cooperation from the food and transformation technologies. And then you have 4 events for each one of these 6 areas, and eventually you end up having the 24 events in total that we are presenting to EXPO. And I don't bother you with the whole range of 24 events. Of course, I'd be happy to give you more direction on that. Here you see the 6 events that cover actually the area of environmental sustainability. 2 of them are intercrossed with other areas, so that's why there are so many. There are 6. Just to tell you, desertification is one of them. Land use change and novel competing uses of land as resource, also covering the land grabbing issues, is another of them. And integrated pest management, for instance, and exploitation of natural defenses is another event that we are going to bring them. Each event is coordinated by CNR. This one, for instance, related to wine industry, is coordinated in Palermo, and there will be partner all over Italy, as you can see here. We are also importantly, we give also lots of importance to international collaborations. You see a few slides of events, preparatory events that have been organized in Israel, for instance, the first one, the second one in Brazil, and the third one together with the European Commission in ISPRA, where we are trying to match our calendar and our planning and to do something together. Of course, collaborations have been carried out also with the Italian partners, from the university to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and many other partners that are also represented here. And we are also involved in communication, dissemination, and edutainment for EXPO, for the Italian pavilion, including a series of preparatory events all over Italy from October 2014 to May 2015, the creation of demonstration and communication tools for single projects, and you see here at the right side of the screen our new website that has been just launched, I think the 1st of October, and I would like to recommend you to visit to have more information about this. And so I think this is everything I had to say, and the last word is perhaps that I would like to see all of you at EXPO at the Italian pavilion. Thank you very much. Wait here.
So even if we are a little bit late, there is room for some question coming from the floor. Please. Just a moment.
Thank you, Roberto Tuberoso, University of Bologna. I just asked a question before. I'm going to follow the same path. Well, first of all, congratulations, because I think it was an almost perfect panel, in my opinion, and I may have a conflict of interest, of course, because I'm a plant breeder. I don't see what to me is the most important component of food security represented in this panel, which is seed companies and what genetics and plant breeding can do for us in the future. It was touched by some of the speakers. Also, Francesco touched it, because clearly this is one of the issues. We do collaborate with CNR on that. So nobody's perfect, but take it as a constructive criticism. Most speakers have touched an issue that is very common these days. It's almost a buzzword, food waste. And it's becoming very popular to claim that if we can avoid this food waste, we can solve, I'm not saying most of the problem, but a large portion of the problem of food security. Personally, I don't believe in this because I think as affluence of society grows, unfortunately, food waste grows. But the issue that is missing here, and this is my question to the panel, why don't we start saying that 80 or 90%, I'm not sure how much, of this 40% and the large portion could be avoided if we were able to breed crops more resistant to pests, pathogens, fungi, bacteria that are destroying much of the crop from consumption to consumers. Certainly, a certain amount of food gets wasted in people's fridge, not much in mine. But this issue should be addressed more because the inherent danger that I see, the public opinion, and someone rightly so said, bioeconomy is a mindset. When people hear, okay, here we have some sort of magic wand that can provide 40% of food resources in a very easy way that all we agree with, who is not against waste? Everybody is against waste, myself included. On the other side, we have the plant breeders who says, well, you know, if we're lucky, we can give you 1.5% per year. Well, clearly people say, hey, let's go for food waste is going to solve all the problems. And this is the inherent danger that I see in the mindset of the European consumers. And in my opinion, the EU has a very strong responsibility for a more balanced view. The Pope has blessed slow food, has blessed not wasting food. I bless them as well. But we should be more aware that there is something else that EU, I'm sorry to say, is largely neglecting. Thank you.
It's a complicated question, even if it's clear, but from your point of view? Push, there is a...
Thank you. I think you have put your finger on a very important issue. It's obviously something that we talk about daily, but as an industry, as the food industry, we are very hesitant to use any GM products because that's what you're talking about. Well, enhancing. Okay, plant breeding in general. Okay. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the consumer and consumer acceptance. I mentioned this in my brief introduction. We cannot force feed people. We will not force feed people. And unless we know that the consumer will be happy to eat foods coming from whatever source that you would like to produce, we won't use these products, this raw material. Waste. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Innovation comes from this. So you are using it. So why not admit that? Why? Somebody said, well, we offer a bubble, a fable to the consumer. Somebody has to break this bubble. Otherwise, the consumers will always have a negative attitude toward innovation from a genetic standpoint. And this will be one of the main drivers if we want to double production. But yesterday we said that it's not so important.
I agree.
So
I
in a
agree.
way, you are
Certainly
already benefiting from that.
It's very important. As you know, there are 3 different sorts of biotech now. 4, I'm referring to green biotech, not to white, red, or blue biotech. So green biotech is used, yes, and always labeled when used. And there is a resistance out there. So, and we have pledged that 1, if we use it, it will be labeled. 2, we will not use it. We will not force feed people. Obviously, I agree with you that
Sorry,
this is
I'm
a
not
very
talking about
important
force
side.
feeding people.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
talking
of course
about
not.
conventional plant breeding that we have used
Okay.
since mankind went from the Neolithic to society, and we are still using, and we will be still using.
Yes, of course,
So,
of course.
you're not answering my question, I'm sorry.
Right, well, I misinterpreted your question in that
Well,
case.
but see, if you misinterpret...
Because there are other questions. It's an open debate, but if you want...
And I think it's great that the discussions, but there's no magic bullet. Let's face it, there's no magic bullet, and we could also look into quick wins. When you look at a food producing company and you want to address a challenge on food waste, first of all, for the audience, we have to look at food waste at the consumer end and at food waste at the production end. When you said food security issues cannot be solved by food waste avoidance, I may agree with you on the food waste at the consumer end, maybe, but maybe not so much on the agricultural side. And there are different possibilities. As you talk rightly about seeds, which we are not into the business, but we could also use of byproducts. That's another possibility in order to address waste at the agricultural side. So there's no magic bullet. There are several possibilities on both ends to address. I think from the agricultural side, the food industry and Nestle has a stronger stand at the moment than for food consumer. And as you say, on the food consumer side, on avoiding food waste, there's yet not much done, and it has to be done a lot in the future.
Okay, there is another question.
Thank you.
No, just if you want to answer. No, I agree with you, but no, it's important plant breeding. I believe, especially in less developing countries. No, and so, but let me answer you. And I believe that should be realized, should be done in the framework of sustainability at local level. So to reinforce also local institution and participative and field research, because you know better than I how important it is to use local capacity. That's what I wanted to say.
Before to give you the microphone, there is another comment just to conclude the debate.
Well, just very briefly, you mentioned in your comment seed production, plant breeding. Yes, I do agree. You mentioned food waste. I think everybody agrees food loss is another one. Maybe you remember the slide that I've put up in which I said that the biomass is really the central part of the whole issue, which goes into all sorts of uses, which we also need to guarantee in terms of we need to produce the biomass which is required for whatever use we would like to give it. And as I've mentioned, we do not know exactly how much biomass we do have available. We have no indication there. And within the Commission, together with all the different directorates generally involved, we are setting up a project in really trying to map how much biomass do we have available, where does it come from within the EU and globally, how can we serve the various needs, or what are the needs and what can be served, what cannot be served, how to increase it. And I think that what you're touching upon is far more complicated than just these 3 points or 2 points, which are extremely essential. I also would like to add water supply to that, the availability of all sorts of chemicals to increase growth, and so on and so forth. So the issue is being dealt with, but it is extremely complicated. And I think, again, that the EXPO is really a vehicle to have a kind of a more overall comprehensive view with respect to that problem.
Your turn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Mads Dorf. I'm from the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. I just have a question to the panel, and maybe particular to Oxfam, because I was a little bit surprised taking the headline of the EXPO into consideration. You spent more than half of your time on talking about the biofuels policy, knowing that biofuels only counts for a few percentage of the price increases and the basic problem with the food crisis as such. And secondly, we also know that that it's already being dealt with in Europe. I mean, right now there are discussions going on. You are also making a long presentation on that. I just wonder a little bit why a green NGO chooses to focus half of the time on biofuels instead of focusing on what EXPO 2015, in my views, is really about, which is actually to see new opportunities, to move into a bioeconomy 2.0 or something like that instead of bioeconomy 1.0, where we actually utilize our residues, our waste in better ways, where we actually use plant breeding or whatever new technologies to actually increase and intensify the yields that we get from our agricultural and food industry. Thank you.
No, thank you for the question, because maybe it allows me to clarify something. First, we have evidence, and I don't want to bother people, but we can share it. I can send you the documents that show that, for instance, 46% of food, the price increase for corn is due to biofuels. And I can send you the document, and you can say, no, it's not true, it's a mystification, but I think it's not the room here. And I think that some numbers that I gave you about biofuel impact, according to the actual directive, would be impossible to be unsustainable, totally unsustainable. For instance, we have also some evidence that the first generation biofuels, for instance, soya biofuel, have more greenhouse gas emissions than oil, if we consider the ILUC. Anyway, this is, I understand you don't agree, so I would be glad to send you some evidence and to have a debate online about this. Well, so that's why we believe it is an important issue. That's why I spent half of my time speaking about biofuels. Maybe you could say it is a little off topic. Anyway, we feel it as a key point for global food security. That's why I spend my time. So after the break, we can share our email and
let me suggest to be very short in the answer, even I understand that the matter is complicated. There is a question here from the floor, and then, please, you are asking something? No.
Hello, my name is Ramazan Kızıl, coming from Istanbul Technical University, and I have research along the food characterization. I want to ask you a question about what kind of approaches you are following for new food design or the product design. Is it all about adding different kind of additives to improve the texture, or packaging to make it more attractive, or any other sort of technological approaches for new food products and design? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass over perhaps to Nestle afterwards, but in general, the food industry, especially under our Food for Life project, we're working on foods which promote gut health, for example. These are just to give you some concrete examples. We're also working on food which is specifically designed for certain populations, like the elderly or the aging population, with added nutrients, fortification, and this sort of thing. We're also working on reformulation, which brings a lot of new and novel products to the market. Reformulation of trans fats, for example, or reformulating out salt, or reducing salt, also substituting sugar or high-calorie elements with lower-calorie elements. We have a new project now which is focusing on calorie management. So it's not only about energy in and energy out, it's also about physical activity and the diet or lifestyle as a whole. So there's a huge amount of stuff going on. We're also working on packaging, of course, yes. Lots of things happening there. We're working on waste. We're working on using food waste as an energy source for producing other things. So there's a lot going on. And if you like, we can discuss it afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Michael Karos from Nova Institute, Germany. I have 2 points. The first is on meat production. We all know that meat has a high impact on the environment. what is the status of artificial meat production? I see in Netherlands, UK, and China a lot of progress in this field. Could you comment how far this is developed? And the second thing is, I would also like to spend a few minutes on biofuels, because I agree to you that biofuels are a very inefficient way to use the land. And this is not a problem mainly for food crops. It's the same for non-food crops. They even need more land. But the good news is we have cheap solar, we have electric cars, we have solar fuels. And if you compare, I will show on the afternoon a slide on that. If you compare, if you have the same area land where you can drive one biofuel car, or from the same land 100 solar electric cars. So solar electric is 100 times more land efficient than biofuels. And so I think biofuels will not have any future if they have a shortage in land. So I would really support your view, and I can give you a lot of document on that if you're interested. So we can discuss later, but just to support your view.
No, thank you. Just to complete also, Oxfam is not against biofuels at all. It's against when biofuel policies improve land grabbing are not inefficient, are not efficient. That's what the synthesis of my.
Yeah. Well, we're not the biggest meat producing or meat consuming production company, manufacturing company, but. You're fully right. The problem is, and that's why I showed in my presentation, we have to link environment and nutritional quality. The nutritionist, for example, nutritional community says clearly, animal-based proteins is the best food for stunted populations. So for a large part of India, for a large part of sub-Saharan Africa, that would be the ideal food for reducing stunting. So that is a clear scientific opinion, which is not a Nestle opinion. On the other hand, we see, as you say, that it's environmentally very heavy. So we have, and also to answer your question, we have different research programs focusing on, and I'm heading the research program on sustainable nutrition, and one of the focus areas is alternative proteins. So we look into proteins that are, for example, from byproducts, and I cannot disclose all the information because we also want to be ahead of competition in that research. But definitely we look into plant proteins and other sources of proteins that have a same nutritional profile and less environmental impact. Very important. Honestly, we have not looked into artificial meat because we are not a huge meat consumer. Our business is heavily on dairy, so we look more into where we really can make a difference rather than on meat sector. But we observe it. But we do not invest at the moment. We do research into artificial meat, and we're not qualified to do so.
Thank you. Mindaugas Maciulevičius. I'm coming from European Economic and Social Committee and also representing Lithuanian agricultural sector. But I just wanted to comment quickly. First of all, this discussion was really good opportunity to see exactly on the extent we can go with that and how different views can be expressed. And what I would like to point out that there was already a lot of times for possibilities for the misinterpretation. So looking into a future, the bioeconomy, this all that concept, it's really fantastic, and all the parties are kind of supporting that. And if we're talking about the civil society, there will be not only the Greens, there will be consumers, there will be young peoples, and a lot of different sectors. But also what we have to make sure that in the discussions, in the policy making, we should be, first of all, very, very transparent. And secondly, very precise on what we're saying, because sometimes like beautiful ideas can get misinterpreted, and this is what is the biggest harm. Because at the moment we're talking about this fantastic initiative from the science point of view, where you can reuse a lot of materials and make, let's say, from the food security thing, you can be more productive, but also respecting the environment. This is the main goal over here. But there is also, as it was said very clearly, there are different techniques in the past which happened in the past and which potentially is still in the field, and it still could be potentially talked about as bioeconomy. So we have to make sure that we are very much transparent and precise. Thank you very much.
Other comments or questions? The last one, I think, because we have to close the session.
I'm David Burrows, a journalist. I just wanted to pick up on, Jorg mentioned the need to talk about nutritional quality of foods, and Mela talked about half of all products are sort of new every 5 years. I just wanted to know whether, how to drive, to ensure, how to ensure that those 50% of products in 5 years are healthier, fairer, lower impact. Does that require more regulation from the European Union and governments, or can it be left up entirely to sort of businesses to drive that, or indeed consumers to drive that? So just what the drivers would be.
I'm happy for a question, because we have focused all our research efforts through programs on reduction of sugar, salt and fat. We call it the Healthy Pleasure Program. So we are clearly looking at bringing more goodies into the food products, meaning, for example, micronutrient fortification, vitamins and minerals, and at the same time reducing salt, sugar and saturated fatty acids in the program. We have commitments disclosed, publicly disclosed or not, on reduction targets by 2016, and are very transparent with it. And we are now in the process of publishing and having a big conference in the World Congress on Public Health and Nutrition of our reformulation system. So what we disclose as well, and what we show clearly, how we're going about the reduction, what are the targets, and what is the methodology we are using. And we would be very happy if that could become even a larger standard for others how to reformulate products. And I believe in very clear thing, you have to be transparent. I don't think that regulations are necessary, but what the food industry and Nestle is doing, I cannot talk about the food industry, that Mela can talk better about it, but what we do in reformulation, we disclose clearly the principles, methodology, results, etc., and invite external stakeholders to look at it.
So, I need to close the session with some closing remarks. Let me say that when the floor is so active means two things. First, that the topic are very hot. And the second is related to the fact that the speaker put on the table correctly the hot topic. So is, of course, an open discussion. But I think that there are more to do. One other consideration is related to, from a general point of view. I think that the suggestion that comes from the discussion is that we need to communicate better all the things that we discussed also this morning, because I think communication is the first step in order to orient policy and so on. So having an open debate, but with good communication and good information. In this sense, and with this I conclude, I join my invitation, what the speaker said before, to participate to the EXPO, because I think the EXPO will be an open window to all this topic that we discussed this morning. The floor is an international floor. We will wait you in Milan in order to follow and further discussion on this argument. Thank you very much to everybody, and see you in Milan.